So let's go ahead and create our first class here. But also notice that as we kind of talked about before, we have this public class, my class here, that we included in this project, which includes this void main, which is the entrance point. So we have seen a class before. Maybe we haven't talked about it as much as we will be starting talking about it. So it turns out that this indeed is a class. So there's a class and there is a method inside there. Okay, this is again the entry point of our Java project or Java file. Now we could create our class outside of this class in this same file here. That's not a problem at all. But what I'm going to do actually is I am going to show you how classes should usually be created, because the idea is to compartmentalize our project, our code base, so that we don't have a lot of dependency in one file only. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's open this project here, and just inside of this package here, this is a package because I can open and close, and there's my class there. I'm going to right click, say new Java class. There we go. And I'm going to give it a name. The name of this Java class is going to be, let's call this microphone, because we're going to simulate a microphone class to create object. The rest, it's all good. Just go ahead and say okay, and voila, we have a microphone class. Okay, notice that we have here public class microphone. All right, there we go. This is syntax. We'll understand what a public really means at the later time when we talk about modifiers. Very good. So this is the syntax. You say public and then class and then the class name. Notice also the class name must always in Java at least have cap letter. The first letter has to be capital. All right, very good. So a class, as we said before, is a blueprint. At this point, this blueprint here is empty, so it doesn't have anything that will make this class an actual full class, which in turn will allow us to create objects off of it. So copies of the actual objects, right? So in this case here, let's go ahead and put a few instance variables. I'm going to say instance variables, or also they're called properties, okay, or fields. Okay, so instance variables, properties, fields are very important in the creation of a class because it allows us to start putting together the pieces of what our blueprint is going to be. So for our microphone, we can add a property, an instance variable or a field, such as string name as such. Okay, so now I'm saying this microphone has a property of name or a string called name. Right? And then I can do the same. I can add another one, let's say color. I can keep going and add an integer here called model as such. Okay, so now we have these properties attached to our microphone. So we have that blueprint, which at this point is not an object, right? Because we have to create the object out of our microphone. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stop here and go back to our my class, because this is the entry point. That's where we are going to instantiate this microphone class to make it an object. Because at this point, like I said, it's just a simple blueprint. All right, very good. So going back to my class at Java here, where we have our entry point, how do we then create the object? Well, simply, we will have to do the following. In this case, we know it's a microphone, right? Because it is indeed a class, we can make it as a type, just like we've done before with variables. Meaning, to instantiate our microphone, I have to do this. I'm going to say microphone. There we go. It's showing there. There is a microphone. Just hit enter. And I'm going to call this microphone as such. Right? So now, remember this. We're saying microphone. This is indeed the class we created, which makes it a type. That means now creating a variable, in this case is going to be an object pretty soon, a variable of type microphone. The same thing, in fact, let me just put a comma there, semicolon. Same thing we did when we say string name, right? If we say string name or string nationality as such, what are we doing here? We're doing the same thing. We're actually creating a type nationality of string. There we go. Now, the difference here now is that we need to instantiate this object, right? So we say microphone to instantiate it, meaning to create a piece of object in memory, right? Say, okay, memory, I need a new space where I'm going to create an object of microphone. We say the keyword new and say microphone as such. And there it is. So now we have the object microphone, which will have all of these properties here, right? You can see I can actually access those properties by saying microphone. There we go. And say dot. Dot means access operator. So we are accessing something in this object microphone. So look at this. Now we have color, model, name, which is exactly what we have here. Name, color, model. Ah, very good. Very good. So I can say color. I'm going to set it to something blue, like that. Get the object again. I want to set the name to be, say, Blue Yeti, right? Go back microphone dot model, because now I know that model is an integer. In fact, if I go back here, say dot, you can see the types to the right here. See, that's the beauty of this IDE. It actually aids us on understanding what is going on and what are the types for each of these properties. So name is a string type, as we decided it to be. Color is also a string type. Model is indeed an integer. Very good. So now if I say model here, I'm going to pass just a number. Very gibberish. There we go. Okay. So now we've constructed our object. Now notice here when I say new microphone, I'm actually having to put the parentheses there to signify that we are calling what it's called a constructor. We haven't talked about constructor, but we will in a second there. Okay, very good. So we have our object. Once we have our object, we say this is microphone now in memory object. We can then access the color with the dot operator. So microphone dot, so access color property, and we want it to be blue. It is indeed double quotes because it's a string type. Okay, again, types are very important in Java, as you very well know right now. Okay, so we have our object now. How do we then show what's inside of our new created object, all these properties? Well, I can say sys out like that. I'm going to say microphone as this. Let's see what's going to happen. Let's save and run. Very good. Once we do that, you notice that we see here CBAWP, learn Java microphone at all this gibberish here. Well, what's happening here is that, well, we do have our object, and this is indeed the address to where in memory. So what this means is that we do have our microphone object at, this is simple at, this memory address. Okay? So whenever we call the actual object as such, it's not going to give us anything else but just the address to where this object we created is located in memory, because everything has a location in memory. So whenever we say new microphone, we're saying, okay, create a new object in a certain place in memory in our computer. So this is not very useful to us because we don't really care about, at this point at least, about this gibberish, quote unquote, although it's very important information. What we want to do is to get the information like for color, name, or model. To do that, we use the same access operator. So dot model, for instance, save, control, run. We're going to see the number 133543, just like we added there. If we wanted to say see color, for instance, we use the same thing, dot, run, and we have blue. And you get the idea. If I want name, we should see at the bottom here, Blue Yeti. Very good. Now you may say, why going through all this process here of creating a class first, as we did here, right? Microphone class, and we have these properties, and then come here on our entry point and create a new instance of our object, right? Instantiated it. You will hear this many times. Instantiating our object, right? All that, and then add these values to our properties and so forth. Why go through all this? Well, the beauty here is that once we understand how classes work, how to create objects and so forth, we are transitioning ourselves into creating more robust code. Because now this microphone here class, we can create as many microphones as we want, right? Because we have that flexibility. So we could come here and create another microphone type here. Say microphone. I can say GH microphone or mic, something like that. Okay, new microphone. This is an entirely new instance of a different kind of microphone. Ah, right, because I can GH now. This one, I'm going to say model is going to be equal to something like gibberish as such. and then I can say gh_mic.name is a string. It's going to be GHZB. I don't know if there's such microphone. H, and continue, let's say color. I can say it's red. Like that, right? And I can copy this, and I'm going to use this GH microphone now. If you save and run, look at this. Now we have two separate objects, different type of microphones, but all of that comes from one class only, which is what we created this microphone here. There is the beauty. There is the beauty. In fact, Java is built under this sort of architecture where everything is an object. There's a lot of classes that you can instantiate them as you need them, create all of the instances as you can see here, and go from there. Okay, now this is what we call object-oriented programming paradigm. Okay, whenever you see OOP, this is what we mean. There's a lot of other things, of course, that comes with it, but in essence, now we have this flexibility of creating as many objects as we want with different access to memory. Because remember, this is a different object than this, even though it comes from the same class, right? We could have created a different mic object if we wanted to do so. In fact, as we said about the location and address in memory here, if I get rid of the access properties there and save this as we did before, let's see what's going to happen. You can see that all of them actually have different places in memory, which means, as I said before, now these objects, even though they stem from the same class, they're different objects, right? Because look, microphone at this address, and the next one is at this address. So totally different places in memory. All right, very good. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to create another object, right? As we did a different kind of microphone. Don't worry, you can make it up as you go, okay? So these names, in fact, this Blue Yeti here, it's an actual microphone that I'm using to record this video right now here, right? So, but I don't want you to go ahead and actually look for real microphones. If you wish to do so, you can do that. But it's just an exercise, right? You can just make up as you go. So create another object, microphone type, and look up the different places in memory that each of those objects that you are going to create are going to live, right? So you can see the difference here. It's not a big deal, but it's just something you can actually wrap your head around, okay? And of course, you can go ahead and add the actual model, name, color, and so forth. So all of the properties that we created here. Right? And once you do that, I want you to create your own class, right? So think of something else that you might have to create a class for. And also, whenever you want to create a class, you have to think of something that is most of the time a noun, right? So a microphone, a person, church, car, those are nouns. They tend to be the best things to create a class from. All right? Okay, so go ahead and do that exercise and play around with this concept again, and I should see you in the next video.